Hey, welcome back to the Broker's Voice. I am excited this week because I have Madison Urtso joining me. Madison's coming from the DFW. She is the Vice President of Risk Management Consulting with Marsh MMA. I'm going to say Marsh McLennan MMA. We'll just call you MMA. Madison, welcome to the Broker's Voice.
Thank you, Andy. I'm so excited to be here. I've been an avid watcher of your previous episodes, so I'm honored to be here with you.
Well, anytime we can highlight somebody doing good work, that is what this show is about. So I'm excited to have you on because that is what you're doing. But before we get into that, you have a cool story to share about how insurance became something you wanted to actually get into, because you're one of about 5 people I might know that actually went to college for risk management. But talk about your first experience with this thing we call business insurance.
Well, and it's so funny because taking you back a little bit further on how I decided to major in risk management, I went to the University of Georgia. So any Bulldogs watching?
Bulldogs, 2-time national champs.
So I went there, and I remember sitting down with my dad, and I knew I wanted to go into business, and there were probably 5 majors that were offered. It was like finance, accounting, risk management, business management, and marketing. And my dad was like, risk management looks really cool. I didn't know this was a major. But what he thought risk management was actually like, hedging utilities prices and commodities and like interest rate risk and these really sexy financial mechanisms that he actually did as a management consultant for Accenture. And so then I realized after my first week of school, when I took all my intro classes, that it was actually an insurance degree. And my dad wanted me to change my major. But there were 30 people in my intro to insurance class, and there were 300 into my intro to finance class. And I was like, the opportunity is here. And I'm really glad I stuck with it, because only a few years later, I had a really interesting first experience into the agent broker world. I was interning for my stepdad, and he had a consulting firm on the HR side. And I was a summer intern, and he was actually a July renewal for his business insurance. And he was like, I know you're an insurance major. Do you want to sit in on this meeting with my agent? And I was like, sure. At the time, I didn't know if I wanted to go on the underwriting side or the broker side or what I wanted to do. And so I sat in on that meeting, and I will never forget how bad it went. My stepdad, it was the week of his renewal, by the way. So it was the agent came in 5 days before his renewal, delivered an insane increase. My stepdad's face was, beet red. He was, his fists were both clenched. He was so angry. And I remember thinking, is this what it's like? Like, is this what agents do for their clients? Is it always this bad? Is it, there was no line of sight, no budget certainty, no consultative approach. And even as a young college student, I was like, this is not it. If this is what agents do, I don't want to be a part of that. But then I debriefed with my stepdad after the meeting, and he was like, you can do so much better than that. He's like, let that be a learning experience that, the status quo, if that's what the status quo is, rise above that and do something different. And so that's why I chose to go on the broker side, was because I saw an opportunity to make it a better experience for insurance buyers and really flip that script and hopefully not make insurance something that everyone is abhorrent to. So that's how I got here and became an advisor, was because I saw firsthand what a bad advisor looked like.
Well, your story is not uncommon, unfortunately. It's funny to hear your biological father, when he heard that it's actually an insurance major, not risk financing, it's the famous old, it's insurance. And he wanted you to change your majors.
Yep.
But fast forward to your experience with your stepfather. You and I talked about this offline, one of our coaching sessions, about unexpected surprises. And unfortunately in this industry, that's what we experience far too often, is delivering the unexpected surprise. And what you witnessed sitting at the conference room table there that day was, not only was this broker delivering an unexpected surprise the week of the renewal, which is
Mhm.
already a problem, but he had no concept of what that increase was doing to your stepfather's business. He had
Exactly.
no concept of what was going on in here, as he was thinking about what he was going to have to do with his budget
Mhm.
because of this increase he was given days before he had to make a decision.
Yep.
And I hear this so often from people who come from the outside into the industry. Maybe they were an Aflac rep or a Colonial rep or something. Now they're on the retail side as an advisor. It comes from an experience they watched when they watch brokers who, quite frankly, are making good money, not doing anything
Yep.
or giving any good advice. And they're like, I could do this. And so that's so interesting. Now let's talk about, your tagline is you're here to make insurance fun again.
Yep.
And for many people, that word insurance just makes them cringe, especially when you think about the people who buy it.
Mhm.
What's your concept of that? What's your theory about making insurance fun again? Because again, most businesses who have had to use it before
Mhm.
because of a claim often have a negative experience.
Yep.
And so how can we make insurance something more businesses have fun with?
Yep. And it's funny, Andy. I get this question a lot because the people that read my bio on LinkedIn, they'll see my tagline at the end: "Make insurance fun again." And of course, it's a play on words. If you know, you know. I think everyone realizes what I was doing there, but I'm not going to put on rose-colored glasses and assume that I can make insurance a fun experience. But what I can do is I can make it a better experience, because, to your point, it's the one thing you have to buy that you get punished for using. So if
Well said.
you have a claim, a bad claim, you'll see in your renewal the next year that you're going to get an increase, usually in line with whatever the carrier paid out the previous year. And so most people have a negative experience. So while I don't think that people are going to list insurance on their hobby section of Facebook, assuming that it's something they have fun with, I do think that I can make it a positive experience, right? And that comes with, truly having a vested interest in the business of the people that you're working with. So understanding their business, trying to be a part of and understand what's their culture, what are their goals, what are their roadblocks. Because while insurance may not necessarily be a solve on the front end for any of those things, it plays an integral part in those things. And so if you, as the broker or the advisor, doesn't understand what they're trying to accomplish and doesn't understand what stands in the way of them accomplishing that, you're never going to be able to deliver for them. And so by simply being a true partner for people, it automatically coincides with a more positive experience, because they know they're working with someone that cares. They know they're working with someone that understands where they're trying to get. And also, having someone that doesn't necessarily, paint over the fact that insurance has been a negative experience. I mean, I'm very transparent with my clients, and that transparency leads to trust, and trust ultimately, forms lifelong relationships where you end up having a relationship rather than this conduit to the insurance marketplace that a lot of advisors become inevitably.
Yeah, no, I think, and let's not just crap on insurance. There's businesses out there who've been saved
Yeah.
because of insurance as well. But at your point, you said it so well. It's one of the things we buy in life we get punished for using, and that's true whether you're buying commercial insurance or health insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
If a company is using the health insurance or you're using the health insurance individually, guess what? You're going to see a fairly significant increase the following year. And so let's talk about, one thing where you're at in your business. You're still I'd call you fairly early in your career.
Mm-hmm.
You're a younger advisor having a lot of success. I want to talk about something I think a lot of young advisors go through, and that is imposter syndrome. And you're going after big business. Like, you're in the DFW market, you're going after big accounts, talking to big time CFOs, CEOs, executives. Talk about when you walk in that room, that conference room with the executive at a company that represents, a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 employees. Talk about that imposter syndrome that can creep up, and what you do to make sure that you are still walking in with the confidence that, yes, I understand this is a big company, but I'm here to do a job.
Yeah. I've struggled with imposter syndrome my entire career. And
welcome to the club.
I've shared that with you quite a bit. Even in my first role as an advisor several years ago, I would have success, Andy, and I would explain it away. I'd be like, oh, it was really good timing. They were pissed at their broker and I called at the right time. Right. Or, maybe it was just one of those things that they just wanted to change. And I was the first person that came to mind. And so I always explained away my success because I never believed that I deserved it. I was like, oh, I'm, I've only been in the industry 5 years. Why would a CFO of XYZ company want to partner with me? Right. And so then I realized that the more success I had, I couldn't continue to explain it away. Right. There had to be something that I was doing, a value that I was bringing, something that I was doing differently that was resonating and was something that they were looking for. And I had to find a way to internalize that and build that self-confidence. I think a lot of times too, and not to play the female card, but this is a very male-dominated industry. And so for decades and decades, previously, the people that were building multi-million-dollar books of business were all men. And so there's also that facet of it that's like, these people are going to doubt me. They're going to probably explain away my success as well. And so it was the seeds of doubt that would kind of plant internally and externally. And how I really got over that was, working on daily affirmations, just, looking in the mirror at myself. You've accomplished XYZ. This is your goal. You're going to get there. You bring a ton of value, and just realizing that it's okay to pat yourself on the back sometimes and be like, okay, I did this. I've been working towards this and I finally achieved it. And am I done working? No, I'm only going to get better. And so I think if I could give any piece of advice to young advisors, to female advisors, maybe to advisors that are in a lull, because there are highs and lows in this business, it would be to take a moment to step back at a 30,000 foot view and look at all the work that you've put in over the course, whether it's 7 years, whether it's 1 year, whether it's 20 years. Look at all of the work that you've done, where you started and where you are now, and celebrate that, and realize that, if you put in the work and you worked on yourself and you've had success in your career, you have the ability to build upon that. You just have to allow yourself to have some grace and recognize that you're here for a reason, and that the grind never stops. You got to keep going and just pick up and have that confidence to walk into that boardroom.
Yeah, I mean, there's several lessons in there in what you just said. I think, we're an industry that prides itself on knowledge, and that's where a lot of the imposter syndrome comes in. Is you're comparing your knowledge to your peers and your competition. Mm-hmm. But what people fail to realize is when you walk in the room with a prospect, it doesn't matter what your competition thinks or their level of knowledge. You have to go in understanding confidently that I have more knowledge than the person I'm about to speak to. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it's a CFO of 1,000, life group with a $2 billion revenue stream. Like, I know more about my product, my area of expertise, than the person I'm about to talk to.
Yeah.
And you bring up a very good point, part 2 of this. And by the way, this goes for men too, because when you're a good looking individual, mm-hmm. there's that argument that's what opens doors. You're good looking. Again, yeah. I know male advisors, good looking guys that get in the door with a female decision maker.
Yeah.
And there's this thing in the business of likability and credibility, right? Mm-hmm. Likability can get you in the doors, which includes looks.
Yeah.
But when that door closes, you got to establish credibility. And I think that's what's important for people to realize is when you have that ability to open doors like that, Now is your opportunity to step in confidently to establish the credibility that you're here, you know what you're talking about, you have a legit process, and I'm here to earn your business.
A hundred
And I
percent.
think a lot of people need to hear that.
I agree. And you brought up an excellent point about the technical side of the business. I think a lot of people early on in their career hold themselves back from taking action because they're like, oh, let me just take one more insurance exam and get one more designation and learn one more line of coverage, because they're so fearful that if they get in front of a buyer that they're going to squander the opportunity, or that they're going to ask them a question about the e-modification factor that they're not going to know, and then it's, you know, it's going to completely just blow the opportunity. But in reality, you, when you're walking into that boardroom with the CFO or the business owner of a business, and while insurance is a line item on the balance sheet that is quite large, it's not something usually that they are experts in. And so having the confidence that you may not know everything, but you know something, and that something brings value to these people, because you may look at risk in a completely different way that they do. You may open their eyes to an opportunity to optimize their program, or to, you know, give them better, you know, cash flow advantages, or whatever it may be that you're bringing to the table. You have to understand that you're not ever going to know everything that there is to know about insurance, but you're going to bring value regardless, because it's your discipline and you're an expert there.
Yeah. Let's transition quick to branding. Something that you have done a very, very good job of is branding, creating some name and brand recognition on LinkedIn. And you've done it through your email, through your LinkedIn newsletters. So talk about the newsletter and how it's helped you, because you and I talked, you know, when you think about creating content, some people like doing videos, some people like posting pictures, some people like writing. You have really leaned into writing, and you've done a fantastic job of it. Talk about how those newsletters you're putting out have helped you create some name recognition, because I want people to hear this. This is important.
Yeah. The newsletters, by the way, were not my idea. So Andy, I have to give you credit for giving me that idea. Working with you, you know, really brought that to light. I've always enjoyed writing. And so, you know, the video thing was something I could never really get behind, because I was nervous about that for several reasons. But writing, I felt really comfortable with, and I actually enjoyed. And so while I've been working on creating this brand on LinkedIn, I was just thinking of ways to allow people to get to know me on a personal level. So knowing, you know, what I like to do, what fires me up, but also letting them know that I can bring value to them and educating them. So those two things coincide with building a brand, right? And so the newsletters, when I launched my Risky Business newsletter, I think I got, you know, 900 some odd subscribers within a couple weeks, and then now I'm pushing 1,500 subscribers. So from a brand recognition perspective, it has given me the ability to show up in the inboxes of those 1,500 people, right? And whether or not they're reading my newsletter, they're seeing my name. And that just creates this recognition, right? And so I had a colleague 2 weeks ago come into my office, and she was like, man, I was having coffee this morning with the CFO of XYZ company, and he was like, who is this Madison Urtso girl? Like, I keep seeing her content, like she's posting a lot of good stuff. And I was like, it's working. You know, people are recognizing my brand, and it allows them to feel as though they know me a little bit. It kind of ingratiates myself to people without them having to meet me. And the newsletter also has led to some business opportunities for me. I wrote a newsletter recently about a success story with my newest client, and it was a really compelling story. And it I think led to you know, some thinking with some of my prospective clients, because I received several messages like, hey, Madison, I read your newsletter. I don't know if there's anything wrong with our program or anything we're not considering, or if there's anything on the table that we're leaving, but would you mind coming in and talking to us and maybe having a discussion around it, because your newsletter really scared me a little bit. I want to know that I'm protected. I want to be able to sleep at night knowing that, my insurance and my business is all kosher. And so I've received business opportunities. I've had the opportunity to network with people in the industry that have been reading the letters. And it's just helped me create this exponential awareness that I've been trying to build on LinkedIn.
And for people who did hear this correctly, yes, it's called Risky Business. It is an absolute playoff of the words of the early 80s movie, the one where, yes, Tom Cruise was dancing in his underwear. I think we even crafted the logo for it to look kind of like the logo from the movie. And so, yeah, no, I think you've done a phenomenal job. And a couple of things I want people to hear from this is the beauty of a newsletter on LinkedIn is when you post it, you have to turn your creator mode on. But when you create a newsletter, anybody who subscribes who has an accurate email address in their contact info is going to get an email from you letting you know your newsletter is up every time you post it. And you said something that's so important. It's not whether or not they read it, it's your name appears in their inbox consistent. Yeah. And I love that. And so one quick tip I'd love you to share with anybody if you have it. You're a writer. That's what I love about this is you leaned into writing. You're like, I'm not so sure video's my thing. Any tips on writing when you sit down to write an article for people who struggle?
So the one thing that has really helped me, because I struggled early on with it, because I never wanted it to be, here is what the commercial general liability policy covers and why it's important. I always wanted it to be interesting and worthwhile for my readers. And so what helped me after pushing out those first couple of newsletters was thinking of a story that I could wrap into it. So, if I had a situation where a previous client had an uncovered claim, what did we do as their broker? How did we fix that? Or if, I had a prospect that became a client because they realized that what they were getting was broken and they wanted it fixed. If auto insurance rates are rising, maybe talk about, a client's difficult renewal that you went through, and what it looked like when you drove a better outcome for them. If you can wrap a story and experience into the newsletter, not only does it make it more interesting and compelling for the reader, but it makes it easier for you to write it because it's personal. You went through it. You can describe the details of where you were sitting and how you felt. And if you can give your reader the opportunity to feel something when they're reading it, that's just going to catapult you to so much success.
I love that. Well, those were great tips. I hope everybody who's watching this, I hope you have taken notes because this is, Madison used a phrase I want you to remember, and that's exponential awareness. With 1,500 subscribers on a newsletter that is going out how often are you sending out right now? Is it every 2 weeks?
I actually do it bi-monthly now. Yeah.
Every 2 weeks. These people are getting notified via email that it's going out. She's hitting thousands of people at one time. That's the name of the game today. Well, before I let you go, Madison, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact you're getting married in 4 months.
Yes.
Talk to us about where you are getting married.
So before I divulge the place, I've been engaged for 2 years. So this has been a long time coming. We were a COVID engagement. And so we tried to plan the wedding in Colorado. We tried to plan the wedding in California, two of the strictest states from a COVID perspective.
I live in one of those. Leave it alone.
Yeah,
I know.
So we just were like, okay, we're not going to plan anymore. And then, finally my fiance was like, I really want to marry you. So can you figure out where you want to do this? And so we zeroed in on, I had always, when I was a little girl, wanted to get married in Italy. My family's from Italy, always eating Italian food, learning to cook from my aunts, all of those things. And so Italy was always in the back of my mind, but I was like, oh, no, there's no way we can do that. My dad would never allow it. His dad would never travel out of the country. We can't do it. And Aaron was like, if you want to get married there, we're going to do it. And so we went to Italy last year, toured a bunch of places, fell in love with Lake Como. So it's in northern Italy, kind of near the Swiss border. And funny enough, all of those things that I thought were going to happen, like my dad was going to be like, no, not going to happen, or his dad was not going to show up. We have 90 people coming to Italy to experience,
awesome.
An unforgettable family vacation, 3 days of events, just memories that will last forever. So I always wanted our wedding to be something that people would cherish with us. And so that's what we're going to try to do.
Well, and it's a sign of how much people love you and Aaron.
Yeah.
That you thought you were going to have 40
Yeah.
go over there possibly, and here you have 90 coming over to Italy to attend your wedding. Well, you're going to have a phenomenal time. You're doing phenomenal things in this industry, Madison. If you're listening and watching this, do yourself a favor, at least start following Madison on LinkedIn, subscribe to her newsletter. It's fantastic. Yes, she is out to make insurance fun again. One customer at a time. So Madison, I want to thank you for jumping on the Broker's Voice, because I know you're busy.
Of course.
For everybody else, take a note from what she's doing. Get your butt out there and create exponential awareness. Any last thoughts, Madison, before we roll?
The last thing I want to share, if you're not working with Andy or haven't worked with Andy in the past, and he didn't.
I did not tell her to say this.
Do this. He didn't. But I truly am your biggest fan, and I'm thankful for everything that you taught me. I really feel like the confidence and success I've had this year, a lot of it has been catered to working with you. So thank you for having me here, and thank you for all the knowledge you imparted on me, because it's absolutely transformed.
It's been a pleasure, and it's because you put the work in. We can coach, we can teach, but the students got to put the work in, and you did. So it's paying off. So for everybody else, Madison gave you some clarity. We talked about how to build confidence by getting rid of imposter syndrome. You mix those two together, you'll do amazing things. So go out and have a great day, Madison. Thank you.
Thank you. See you soon, Andy. Thanks.